My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm 44 years old. I'm the CEO of Vance Industries, a technology firm in Austin, Texas. We specialize in software development and artificial intelligence. I employ over 500 people. I have an office on the top floor of a building that I built from nothing. I have a corner office with windows that look out over the city, a desk that was handmade by a craftsman in Vermont, and a nameplate that says Chief Executive Officer in letters that are small enough to be humble but large enough to be read from across the room. 7 years ago, I was a different person. 7 years ago, I was a woman who had given up her career to support her husband. I was a woman who believed that love meant sacrifice. I was a woman who thought that if she was good enough, patient enough, selfless enough, the man she loved would stay. I was wrong. 7 years ago, my husband, Mark, left me for a younger woman. He was 38. I was 37. She was 24. She was his assistant at the marketing firm where he worked. She had long blonde hair and a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. She wore clothes that fit her the way clothes fit someone who has never had to worry about money, about time, about the life she was supposed to be building. Mark told me on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were the days I went to the grocery store, the days I planned the meals for the week, the days I made the list of things we needed to make our life work. I was standing in the kitchen, looking at the calendar, trying to figure out when we could have his parents over for dinner. He walked in. He didn't take off his coat. He didn't put down his briefcase. He stood in the doorway and he said, "I'm leaving." I looked at him. I looked at his face. I looked at the man I had loved for 15 years. I looked at the man I had supported through graduate school, through the early years of his career, through the nights he came home late and the weekends he worked and the dreams he was chasing. "What?" I said. "I'm leaving. I'm moving out." He stopped. He looked at his hands. He looked at the floor. He didn't look at me. "I'm seeing someone else. I have been for 6 months. And I can't do this anymore." I sat down. I sat down at the kitchen table. The same table where we had eaten breakfast for 15 years. The same table where we had planned our wedding, our honeymoon, our future. The same table where I had sat every morning, drinking coffee, waiting for him to come home. "Who?" I asked. "Her name is Jessica. She works at my firm." He stopped. He didn't finish. "She's 24, I said. "She's young. She's pretty. She's everything I'm not." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence was enough. I sat at that table. I looked at the calendar on the wall. I looked at the meals I had planned for the week. I looked at the life I had built around a man who was already gone. "Where will you go?" I asked. "I have an apartment. I've had it for 3 months. I was going to tell you sooner, but I didn't know how." I nodded. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't do any of the things I had imagined doing in the moments when I knew something was wrong, when I felt him pulling away, when I told myself I was imagining things, that he loved me, that he would never leave. "Okay," I said. "Okay." He looked at me. His face was confused. "That's it? You're not going to fight for us? You're not going to ask me to stay?" I looked at him. I looked at the man who had been my husband for 15 years. I looked at the man who had been sleeping with his assistant for 6 months. I looked at the man who had already moved into an apartment, who had already made his decision, who was standing in our kitchen asking me to fight for something he had already thrown away. "No," I said. "I'm not going to fight for someone who has already left." He stood there for a moment. He looked like he wanted to say something else. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He turned. He walked out the door. I heard his car start. I heard him drive away. I sat at the kitchen table, in the house we had bought together, in the life we had built together, and I didn't cry. I didn't cry for 3 years. Before I tell you what happened next, before I tell you how I went from a woman who had given up her career to support her husband to the CEO of a company where he begged for a job, I need you to understand who I was before that day. I need you to understand the woman I was before Mark left, and the woman I became after. If you've ever been left by someone you thought would always be there, drop a broken heart in the comments. And tell me where you're watching from. I want to know who else has been where I was. Let me take you back. To a small apartment in Austin. To a woman who thought she knew what love was. To the beginning of a story I didn't know I was writing. I met Mark when I was 22. I was in graduate school, studying computer science. He was in business school. We met at a party thrown by a mutual friend. He was handsome in the way that ambitious men are handsome, sharp jaw, bright eyes, a smile that said he knew exactly where he was going. I was not the kind of woman men noticed. I was smart. I was driven. I was the kind of woman who stayed in the library on Friday nights, who finished her thesis a semester early, who had a plan for her life that didn't include a husband. But Mark was persistent. He called. He showed up at my study sessions with coffee. He told me I was brilliant, that I was going to change the world, that he wanted to be there when I did. I fell for it. I fell for him. We got married when I was 24. I had just finished my master's degree. I had job offers from 3 different tech firms. I was ready to start my career. Mark was starting his first job at a marketing firm. He told me we could both work, both build our careers, both be successful. But then he got an opportunity. A promotion. A chance to move up faster than anyone expected. He needed to work late. He needed to travel. He needed someone to hold things together at home. And I was there. I was always there. I took a part-time job. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself that once Mark was established, I would go back to full-time work. I told myself that this was what love meant: sacrifice, support, being there for the person you loved. The years passed. The part-time job became a consulting gig. The consulting gig became a few clients I managed from home. The few clients became a way to fill the hours between the things Mark needed me to do. I stopped applying for jobs. I stopped going to conferences. I stopped talking to the people who had once believed I was going to change the world. I became Mark's wife. That was my identity. That was my job. That was my life. I told myself it was enough. I told myself I was happy. I told myself that this was what I wanted. But late at night, when Mark was traveling, when the house was quiet, when I was alone, I would sit at my computer and look at the code I had written years ago. The programs I had built. The ideas I had for things I could create. I would look at them and I would feel something. Something that was almost like hunger. Something that was almost like grief. I had been someone once. I had been someone who was going to change the world. And I had let that person disappear. Mark left on a Tuesday. On Wednesday, I went to the bank. I opened an account in my own name. I transferred half of our savings. It wasn't much. Mark had spent most of what we had. The house was in both our names. The car was in his. On Thursday, I called a lawyer. She told me what I already knew. Mark had been hiding assets. The apartment he had rented for 3 months had been paid for out of our joint account. The trips he had taken with Jessica had been charged to our credit card. The life he had been building with her had been built with our money. On Friday, I went to the grocery store. I bought food for one. I went home. I sat at the kitchen table. I looked at the calendar on the wall. I took it down. I threw it away. On Saturday, I sat at my computer. I opened the file where I had saved the code I wrote in graduate school. I looked at it. I read it. I remembered who I had been. On Sunday, I started writing code again. The first year was the hardest. Mark's lawyer dragged the divorce out for 18 months. He wanted the house. He wanted the car. He wanted to pay as little as possible. He said I had been a dependent spouse who had contributed nothing to our marriage. He said I had no career, no prospects, no future. I sat in the courtroom. I listened to his lawyer tell a judge that I was a woman who had spent 15 years doing nothing. I listened to him say that I was lucky to get anything at all. I listened to him say that I had been holding Mark back from the life he deserved. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I looked at Mark. He was sitting at the other table, his new wife beside him. Jessica was holding his hand. She was wearing a ring that cost more than my car. I looked at her. I looked at him. I looked at the judge. Your Honor, I said. I would like to submit evidence. My lawyer handed the judge a folder. Inside were emails, bank statements, credit card receipts, proof that Mark had been hiding assets, proof that he had been spending our money on his affair, proof that he had been planning to leave for months. The judge read the file. He looked at Mark. He looked at me. Mrs. Vance, he said. You will receive the house. You will receive half of the assets, including the assets your husband attempted to hide. You will receive alimony for 5 years. And Mr. Vance will pay your legal fees. Mark's face went white. Jessica's hand tightened around his. I looked at them. I didn't smile. I didn't feel anything. I walked out of the courtroom. I went home. I sat at my computer. I wrote code. The first client came 6 months later. A small startup that needed help with their software architecture. They had heard about me from someone who had heard about me from someone else. They didn't care that I had been out of the industry for 15 years. They didn't care that I was a woman who had been left by her husband. They cared about the code I had written, the ideas I had, the things I could build. I worked from home. I worked from my kitchen table, the same table where Mark had told me he was leaving. I worked late. I worked weekends. I worked until my eyes burned and my fingers ached and I couldn't remember what it felt like to do anything else. The startup grew. They hired more people. They moved into an office. They asked me to come with them. I said yes. I became their lead developer. Then their head of product. Then their CTO. Then, when the founder retired, their CEO. 7 years after Mark walked out the door, I was running the company that had hired me when I had nothing. 7 years after I was told I had no career, no prospects, no future, I had built something that was mine. Something that no one could take away. The company is called Vance Industries now. I named it after myself. After the woman who had been told she was nothing. After the woman who had built something from the ashes of her old life. We have offices in Austin, San Francisco, and New York. We have clients around the world. We have a reputation for innovation, for excellence, for doing things that other companies said couldn't be done. I have a corner office. I have a nameplate that says CEO. I have a team of people who believe in me, who follow me, who trust me to lead them. I have a life that is mine. I don't think about Mark. I don't think about the years I spent waiting for him to come home. I don't think about the nights I sat alone in the house we bought together, wondering what I had done wrong. I think about the woman I was. The woman who thought love meant sacrifice. The woman who let her dreams disappear because she thought they mattered less than his. The woman who sat at the kitchen table and watched her husband walk out the door. I think about her. I feel sorry for her. I want to tell her that she is going to be okay. That she is going to be more than okay. That she is going to be someone he never expected. I don't think about Mark. But sometimes, late at night, when the office is quiet and the city is dark, I wonder what he's doing. I wonder if he's happy. I wonder if he ever thinks about the woman he left, the woman who gave up everything for him, the woman who was never enough. I don't wonder for long. I have work to do. I have a company to run. I have a life to live. And then, 7 years after he left, Mark walked into my office. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were the days I had my executive team meeting. I was in my corner office, looking over the agenda, when my assistant buzzed. "Ms. Vance? There's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment. He says it's urgent." "Who is it?" "He says his name is Mark. Mark Vance. He says he used to be your husband." I put down my pen. I looked at the window. The sun was setting over the city. The sky was orange and pink and purple. The buildings were dark against the light. It was beautiful. It was the kind of beautiful that makes you forget, for a moment, where you are. "Send him in," I said. The door opened. Mark walked in. He was older. His hair was gray at the temples. His face was lined. He was wearing a suit that was too tight, a tie that was too bright. He looked like someone who had been trying to hold on to something that was already gone. He stopped when he saw me. He looked at my office. He looked at my desk. He looked at the nameplate that said Chief Executive Officer. He looked at the windows that looked out over the city. He looked at me. "Eleanor," he said. He stopped. He couldn't find the words. "I'm the CEO," I said. "I have been for 3 years." He nodded. He didn't sit down. He stood in the middle of my office, his hands at his sides, his face pale. "I need a job," he said. "I lost mine 6 months ago. The firm let me go. I've been looking. I've been everywhere. No one will hire me. I heard you were hiring. I heard you were looking for someone with my experience." I looked at him. I looked at the man who had left me for a younger woman. The man who had told me I was holding him back. The man who had tried to take everything I had. The man who was standing in my office, asking me for a job. "You want to work for me," I said. "I need to work. I have bills." He stopped. He looked at the floor. "Jessica left 2 years ago. She found someone younger. Someone with more money. Someone who wasn't," he didn't finish. I sat back in my chair. I looked at him. I looked at this man who had taken everything from me. I looked at this man who was standing in my office, begging for something I could give him. "Why should I hire you?" I asked. He looked at me. His eyes were wet. His face was the face of someone who had been carrying something for a very long time. "Because I have nowhere else to go," he said. "Because you're the only person who might give me a chance. Because I know I don't deserve it. Because I know I don't deserve anything from you. But I'm asking anyway." I looked at him. I looked at the man I had loved. The man I had sacrificed for. The man who had thrown me away. The man who was now standing in my office, broken and alone, asking for something I had given him for 15 years without him ever asking. "I'll think about it," I said. "Leave your resume with my assistant. I'll be in touch." He nodded. He turned to leave. He stopped at the door. He didn't turn around. "I'm sorry," he said. "For everything. For what I did. For what I said. For leaving. For all of it." He walked out. I sat in my office. I looked at the window. The sun was gone. The city was dark. The lights were on in the buildings across the street. People were working, living, building their lives. I thought about the man who had just walked out of my office. I thought about the woman he had left. I thought about the years I had spent waiting for him to come home. I thought about the years I had spent building something that was mine. I picked up the phone. I called my head of HR. "Mark Vance just dropped off his resume," I said. "I want you to put him through the standard hiring process. No special treatment. No shortcuts. He goes through the same process as everyone else. If he's the best candidate, we hire him. If he's not, we don't. Yes, Ms. Vance. I hung up. I looked at the window. I looked at the city. I looked at the life I had built. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know if I was going to hire him. I didn't know if I was being kind or cruel, generous or foolish. But I knew one thing. I was not the woman he had left. I was not the woman who sat at the kitchen table and watched him walk out the door. I was not the woman who gave up her dreams for a man who didn't deserve them. I was someone else. Someone stronger. Someone who had built something from nothing. Someone who held the keys to his future in her hands. And I had to decide what kind of person I wanted to be. Here's where I need to pause. Because what happened next, the interview, the decision, the moment I had to look at Mark across the table and decide whether to give him a chance, that's the part of this story that changed everything. If you've ever had to decide whether to give someone a second chance, type chance in the comments. Let me know you understand. The HR process took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of phone screenings, skills assessments, panel interviews. 3 weeks of watching from my office as Mark walked through the building, sat in waiting rooms, shook hands with people who didn't know he used to be my husband. 3 weeks of waiting to see if he was good enough, smart enough, qualified enough to work for the company I had built. I didn't interfere. I didn't ask for updates. I told my head of HR, a woman named Diane who had been with me since the beginning, to treat him like any other candidate. No favors. No shortcuts. No special consideration. But I watched. I watched from my corner office, from the window that looked out over the floor where candidates waited. I watched him sit in the chair by the reception desk, his hands folded, his face tight. I watched him walk into interview rooms, shake hands with my managers, try to sell himself to people who didn't know the story of who he was and what he had done. He didn't know I was watching. He didn't know that I saw him checking his phone every few minutes, looking for messages that didn't come. He didn't know that I saw the way his hands shook when he thought no one was looking. He didn't know that I saw the man he had become, older, tired, broken in ways that had nothing to do with the job he was applying for. I should have felt something. Satisfaction. Triumph. The cold pleasure of seeing the man who had left me brought low. But I didn't. I felt something else. Something I didn't have a name for. Something that was almost like sadness. The final interview was scheduled for a Thursday. Diane came to my office the day before. "We've narrowed it down to 3 candidates," she said. "Mark Vance is one of them. He's qualified. His skills are strong. But he's not the strongest candidate." I looked at her. "Who's the strongest?" "A woman named Priya Singh. She's been working in software development for 12 years. She's got a track record of success. She's sharp. She's driven. She's exactly the kind of person we want on our team." "And Mark? He's good. He's not great. He's been out of work for 6 months, and it shows. His skills are dated. His network has dried up. He's not the candidate he was 10 years ago." I nodded. I looked at the window. The city was gray with rain. The buildings were wet. The streets were empty. "Let me sit in on the final interview," I said. "I want to see him for myself." Diane looked at me. She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. She had been with me long enough to know that there was a story between Mark Vance and me. She didn't know what it was. She didn't ask. But she knew. "Tomorrow at 10 a.m., she said. "I'll put you on the panel." I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my apartment, in the dark, looking at the city. I thought about the woman I had been. The woman who sat at the kitchen table and watched her husband walk out the door. The woman who spent 15 years building someone else's life while her own life crumbled. The woman who was told she was nothing, who was treated like nothing, who almost believed it. I thought about the woman I had become. The woman who built a company from nothing. The woman who was respected, admired, feared. The woman who held the keys to her ex-husband's future in her hands. I thought about what I would say to him. What I would ask. What I would decide. I thought about Priya Singh. A woman who had spent 12 years building a career. A woman who was sharp, driven, exactly the kind of person I wanted on my team. A woman who had never been given anything, who had earned everything she had. And I thought about Mark. A man who had been given everything. A man who had taken it all for granted. A man who was now standing at the edge of something, waiting to see if someone would catch him. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know if I was going to be the person who gave him a second chance or the person who watched him fall. I didn't know which one I wanted to be. I fell asleep on the couch, still dressed, still thinking, still waiting for the answer that didn't come. The interview was at 10 a.m. I was in the conference room at 9:45. Diane was there. So was Tom, our head of product development. So was Lisa, our senior HR manager. They looked at me when I walked in. They didn't say anything. They didn't need to. I sat at the head of the table. I put my notebook in front of me. I looked at the window. The rain had stopped. The sun was trying to break through the clouds. At 10 a.m. exactly, the door opened. Mark walked in. He was wearing a suit. A different suit than the one he had worn 3 weeks ago. This one was newer, better fitted. Someone had told him to dress up. Someone had told him this was important. He saw me. He stopped. His face went pale. His hands went to his sides. He looked at me like I was something he had seen in a dream, something he had forgotten, something he was seeing for the first time. "Eleanor," he said. "Mr. Vance," I said. "Please have a seat." He sat down. He looked at the people around the table. He looked at Diane, at Tom, at Lisa. He looked at me. "I didn't know," he started. "You didn't know I would be on the panel," I said. "I'm the CEO. I sit in on final interviews for senior positions. It's standard procedure." He nodded. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. "Let's begin," I said. The interview was professional. Diane asked about his experience. Tom asked about his skills. Lisa asked about his management style. Mark answered. He was nervous. He stumbled over his words. He couldn't find the confidence he had once worn like a coat. I didn't ask anything. I sat at the head of the table and I watched. I watched him try to sell himself to people who didn't know him, who didn't care about his past, who only cared about what he could do for the company. I watched him try to be the man he had been 10 years ago, the man who had been on his way up, the man who had everything going for him. He wasn't that man anymore. He was someone else. Someone who had lost his job, his wife, his sense of who he was. Someone who was standing at the edge of something, waiting to see if he would be pulled back. At the end of the interview, Diane looked at me. "Ms. Vance, do you have any questions for Mr. Vance?" I looked at Mark. He looked at me. His eyes were wet. His hands were shaking. "One question," I said. "Mr. Vance, why do you want to work for this company?" He looked at me. He looked at the people around the table. He looked at the window, at the city, at the sky that was trying to break through the clouds. "Because it's the best company in the city," he said. "Because I want to work for people who are building something. Because I want to be part of something that matters." He stopped. He looked at me. His voice changed. "Because I need a second chance. I know I don't deserve it. I know I've made mistakes. I know I've hurt people. But I'm not the same person I was. I'm not the man who," he stopped. He couldn't finish. The room was quiet. Diane was looking at her notebook. Tom was looking at the window. Lisa was looking at me. Thank you, Mr. Vance, I said. We'll be in touch. He stood up. He walked to the door. He stopped. He turned around. Eleanor, he said. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry for how I left. I'm sorry for the years I took from you. I'm sorry for, his voice broke. He put his hand over his mouth. I'm sorry. He walked out. The door closed behind him. I sat at the head of the table. I looked at my hands. They weren't shaking. They were steady. The decision was mine. Diane made that clear. The panel would make a recommendation, but the final decision was mine. The final decision was always mine. I went back to my office. Why? He asked. Why would you do this for me? After what I did to you? I'm not doing it for you, I said. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. I'm doing it because I don't want to be the person who let someone fall when I could have caught them. I'm doing it because I'm not you. I'm not the person who walks away. He was crying. I heard it. The way he was trying to be quiet, trying to hold himself together, trying to be the man he thought he was supposed to be. Thank you, he said. Thank you, Eleanor. I don't deserve. I know you don't, I said. But you're getting it anyway. Don't make me regret it. I hung up. I sat at my desk. I looked at the window. The sun was setting. The city was golden pink and orange. The buildings were bright against the darkening sky. I didn't know if I had done the right thing. I didn't know if I was being kind or foolish, generous or naive. I didn't know if Mark would take the chance I was giving him or throw it away the way he had thrown away everything else. But I knew one thing. I was not the woman he had left. I was not the woman who sat at the kitchen table and watched him walk out the door. I was not the woman who gave up her dreams for a man who didn't deserve them. I was someone else. Someone who could give a second chance without losing herself. Someone who could be kind without being weak. Someone who could hold the keys to someone else's future and choose to open the door. Mark started the training program the next week. He showed up on Monday morning, dressed in a suit that was too tight, his hair cut short, his face clean. He looked like someone who was trying to be someone else. I watched him from my office. I watched him walk into the training room. I watched him sit in a chair that was too small for him, next to people who were young enough to be his children. I watched him try to be part of something he didn't understand. He didn't look at me. He didn't try to talk to me. He kept his head down, his hands folded, his eyes on the work. He was good at the work. I knew he would be. Mark had always been good at the work. It was the rest of it he couldn't figure out. The rest of it he had never been able to figure out. The weeks passed. He learned our systems. He learned our processes. He learned our culture. He was quiet. He was careful. He was the kind of employee who did what he was told, who didn't complain, who didn't ask for anything. The other trainees liked him. He was older. He was experienced. He knew things they didn't know. He helped them. He taught them. He became someone they could count on. I watched. I watched from my office. I watched him become someone I didn't recognize. Someone who was trying. Someone who was changing. Someone who might be worth the chance I had given him. The call came on a Friday. It was from Diane. Ms. Vance, I need to talk to you about Mark Vance. What about him? He's been doing well in the training program. His supervisors are impressed. His peers respect him. He's been helping the younger trainees, staying late to work with them, putting in extra time. That's good. It is. But there's something else. One of the trainees came to me today. She said Mark told her something. Something about you. About what happened between you. I felt something cold settle in my chest. What did he say? He told her the truth. He told her he used to be married to you. He told her he left you for another woman. He told her he was wrong. He told her he spent 7 years regretting it. He told her he doesn't expect you to forgive him. He told her he's just grateful for the chance you gave him. I sat back in my chair. I looked at the window. The city was gray with rain. The buildings were wet. The streets were empty. "What do you want me to do?" Diane asked. "Nothing," I said. "Do nothing. Let him stay. Let him work. Let him be." "Are you sure?" I looked at the window. I looked at the rain. I looked at the city that had become my home. "I'm sure," I said. "Let him stay." Here's where I need to pause. Because what happened next, the months that followed, the changes that came, the moment I realized that Mark was not the same man who had left me, that's the part of this story I didn't expect. That's the part that taught me something about forgiveness, about redemption, about the kind of person I wanted to be. If you've ever given someone a second chance and watched them take it, type second in the comments. Let me know you understand. The months after Mark started the training program were strange. Not uncomfortable, exactly. Not painful. Just strange. He was there, in my building, in my company, in the world I had built without him. He walked the same hallways. He rode the same elevators. He sat in meetings in rooms where I had made decisions that changed the course of my life. But he didn't approach me. He didn't try to talk to me. He didn't send emails or leave notes or show up at my office door. He kept his distance. He did his work. He helped the younger trainees. He became someone that people in the building knew, someone that people liked, someone that people trusted. I watched him. I couldn't help it. Every time I walked through the office, my eyes found him. He was always working, always focused, always trying to be better than he had been the day before. He stayed late. He came early. He never complained. He never asked for anything. The training program ended. Mark was offered a permanent position. A junior role. Something that was beneath his experience, beneath his skills, beneath the man he had been 10 years ago. He took it. He didn't negotiate. He didn't ask for more. He just said thank you and started the next Monday. He was good at the job. Better than good. He was the kind of employee that managers dream about, reliable, hardworking, always willing to help. He didn't try to climb the ladder. He didn't try to impress anyone. He just did the work, day after day, week after week, month after month. I promoted him after a year. Not because of who he was, not because of what he had been to me, but because he deserved it. He had earned it. He had worked harder than anyone else, learned faster than anyone else, produced better results than anyone else. He was the best person for the job. He came to my office when he got the news. He stood in the doorway, his hands at his sides, his face careful. He looked at me the way you look at something you're afraid to touch. "Thank you," he said. "I know I don't deserve." "You deserve it," I said. "You earned it. That's why you got it." He nodded. He didn't say anything else. He turned to leave. He stopped at the door. "Eleanor," he said. "I want you to know something. I'm not the same person I was. I'm not the man who left. I'm trying to be someone else. Someone better. Someone who deserves the chances you've given me." I looked at him. At the man who had been my husband. At the man who had left me for a younger woman. At the man who was standing in my office, telling me he was trying to be better. "I know," I said. "I see it. Every day. I see you trying." He nodded. He walked out. I sat at my desk. I looked at the window. The city was bright with sun. The buildings were clean. The sky was blue. I didn't know if I had forgiven him. I didn't know if I ever could. But I knew that I had stopped being angry. I had stopped carrying the weight of what he had done. I had stopped letting the past define who I was. And that, I realized, was more important than forgiveness. That was freedom. The next year was a good year for the company. We grew. We hired. We launched new products. We expanded into new markets. We became the kind of company that people talked about, that people wanted to work for, that people admired. Mark was part of that. He wasn't the most important part. He wasn't the leader, the visionary, the one who made things happen. But he was there. He was reliable. He was someone that people could count on. He started mentoring the younger employees. The ones who were just starting out, who didn't know what they were doing, who were scared of making mistakes. He was patient with them. He was kind. He was the kind of mentor I wished I had had when I was starting out. I watched him with the young woman who had taken the job he had applied for. Priya Singh. She was brilliant. She was driven. She was everything I had been at her age. And Mark helped her. He taught her the things she didn't know. He showed her how to navigate the company. He made her better. She came to me one day, after a meeting. She looked nervous. Her hands were clasped in front of her. Her face was tight. "Ms. Vance," she said. "I want to ask you something. About Mark." "What about him?" "He told me something. About you. About what happened between you." I looked at her. At this young woman who was so much like I had been. At this young woman who was trying to understand something she didn't have words for. "What did he tell you?" "He told me he used to be married to you. He told me he left you. He told me he was wrong. He told me he spent years trying to be someone else. Someone who deserves the chances you've given him." I nodded. I waited. "I don't understand," she said. "How can you work with him? How can you be kind to him? How can you give him chances? After what he did to you?" I looked at her. I looked at this young woman who was trying to understand something that had taken me years to learn. "Because I'm not the person I was when he left," I said. "Because I've spent 7 years building something that is mine. Because I don't need to be angry to be strong. Because I don't need revenge to be whole. Because the best revenge is a life well lived. And I have that. I have everything I ever wanted. And he has nothing. He has a job he's grateful for. A life he's trying to rebuild. A past he can't escape. And I don't need to punish him. Life already has." She looked at me. Her face was open. Her eyes were wide. "You forgave him," she said. I shook my head. "I didn't forgive him. I let go. I let go of the anger. I let go of the hurt. I let go of the person I was when he left. And when I let go of that person, I realized I didn't need anything from him. Not an apology. Not an explanation. Not a second chance. I didn't need anything. I was free." She nodded. She walked out. I sat at my desk. I looked at the window. The city was bright. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink and purple. I thought about the woman I had been. The woman who sat at the kitchen table and watched her husband walk out the door. The woman who spent 15 years building someone else's life while her own life crumbled. The woman who was told she was nothing, who was treated like nothing, who almost believed it. I thought about the woman I had become. The woman who built a company from nothing. The woman who was respected, admired, feared. The woman who could give a second chance without losing herself. The woman who could be kind without being weak. I thought about Mark. About the man who had left me. About the man who was trying to be someone else. About the man who was standing in my office, telling me he was sorry, telling me he was trying to be better. I didn't know if I would ever forgive him. I didn't know if I needed to. But I knew that I was free. I knew that the past no longer held me. I knew that I had built something that no one could take away. And that, I realized, was enough. That was more than enough. The call came on a Tuesday. It was from Diane. "Ms. Vance, I need to talk to you about Mark." "What about him?" "He's been offered a job. Another company. A competitor. They're offering him a senior position. More money. More responsibility. More than we can give him here." I sat back in my chair. I looked at the window. The city was gray with rain. The buildings were wet. The streets were empty. "What did he say?" "He said he wanted to talk to you before he makes a decision." I was quiet for a moment. I thought about Mark. About the man who had been my husband. About the man who had left me. About the man who had spent 2 years working for me, trying to be someone else, trying to be better. "Send him in," I said. He came to my office an hour later. He was wearing a suit. A good suit. The kind of suit that someone wears when they're going to an interview. He looked nervous. His hands were shaking. His face was pale. "I heard you have an offer," I said. He nodded. "From a competitor. They want me to run their marketing division. It's a senior position. More money. More responsibility. More than I have here." "That's good," I said. "That's what you wanted. That's what you've been working toward." He looked at me. His eyes were wet. His face was the face of someone who was trying to make a decision he didn't want to make. "I'm not going to take it," he said. I looked at him. I waited. I've been offered jobs before. Since I started working here. 3 other companies. All of them offering more money, more responsibility, more than I have here. I've turned them all down. Why? He looked at the floor. He looked at his hands. He looked at me. "Because I don't want to leave," he said. "Because I don't want to be the person who leaves anymore. Because I want to stay. I want to be here. I want to be part of something that matters. I want to be someone who doesn't run away when things get hard." I looked at him. At this man who had left me 7 years ago. At this man who had spent 2 years trying to be someone else. At this man who was standing in my office, telling me he wanted to stay. "You don't have to stay," I said. "You don't owe me anything. You've paid back whatever debt you thought you owed. You've earned the right to leave." He shook his head. "It's not about owing you. It's about who I want to be. I want to be someone who stays. I want to be someone who builds something. I want to be someone who is part of something that matters." And this, he looked around my office. At the walls, the windows, the building I had built. "This matters. You matter. And I don't want to leave." I sat at my desk. I looked at him. I thought about the man who had walked out of our kitchen 7 years ago. I thought about the man who had spent 15 years taking everything I had to give. I thought about the man who was standing in my office, telling me he wanted to be someone else. "I'm not going to stop you," I said. "If you want to leave, leave. If you want to stay, stay. But don't stay because of me. Don't stay because you think you owe me something. Stay because you want to be here. Stay because this is where you want to be." He looked at me. His eyes were wet. His face was the face of someone who had been looking for something for a very long time. "I want to stay," he said. "This is where I want to be." Mark stayed. He turned down the offer. He kept working, kept helping, kept being someone that people could count on. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't expect anything. He just worked. I watched him. I watched him become someone I didn't recognize. Someone who was patient. Someone who was kind. Someone who was trying to be better than he had been. I thought about forgiveness. About what it meant. About what it cost. About whether I was ready to give it. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure I would ever be sure. But I knew something. I knew that carrying the anger was heavier than letting it go. I knew that holding on to the hurt was keeping me from something I wanted. I knew that I had spent 7 years building a life without him, and that life was good. But it was missing something. Something I hadn't let myself name. I wanted to be free. Not free of him. Free of the past. Free of the story I had been telling myself about who I was and what I deserved. And the only way to be free was to let go. I called him to my office on a Friday. The end of the day. The office was quiet. The city was dark. The lights were on in the buildings across the street. He walked in. He stood in the doorway. He looked at me. He didn't sit down. "I've been thinking," I said. "About what you said. About wanting to stay. About wanting to be someone who doesn't leave." He nodded. He waited. "I want you to know something," I said. "I don't forgive you." He flinched. I saw it. A small movement, like I had hit him. "I don't forgive you for what you did. I don't forgive you for leaving. I don't forgive you for the years you took from me. I don't forgive you for making me feel like I was nothing. I don't forgive you for any of it." He didn't say anything. He stood in the doorway, his hands at his sides, his face pale. "But I'm not angry anymore," I said. "I'm not carrying the weight of what you did. I'm not holding on to the hurt. I'm not letting the past define who I am. I'm letting it go. I'm letting it go because I want to be free. I'm letting it go because I don't want to carry it anymore. I'm letting it go because I deserve to be happy. And I am happy. I'm happy with the life I've built. I'm happy with the person I've become. And I don't need anything from you. Not an apology. Not an explanation. Not a second chance. I don't need anything." He was crying. Tears running down his face. He didn't wipe them away. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry. I know it doesn't matter. I know it doesn't change anything. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry for how I left. I'm sorry for the years I took from you. I'm sorry for making you feel like you were nothing. You were never nothing. You were everything. And I was too stupid to see it." I looked at him. At the man who had been my husband. At the man who had left me for a younger woman. At the man who was standing in my office, crying, telling me he was sorry. "I know," I said. "I know you're sorry. And I believe you. But I need you to understand something. Being sorry isn't enough. You have to show me. You have to show me every day. You have to show me that you're not the same person who left. You have to show me that you're trying to be someone else." He nodded. He wiped his face. He looked at me. "I will," he said. "Every day. For the rest of my life." Here's where I need to pause. Because what happened next, the years that followed, the changes that came, the moment I realized that I had forgiven him without meaning to, that's the part of this story I never expected. That's the part that taught me what forgiveness really means. If you've ever let go of something you thought you would carry forever, type "let go" in the comments. Let me know you understand. The years after that conversation were different. Not because Mark changed, he had already started changing long before that day. But because I changed. I stopped watching him. I stopped thinking about him. I stopped measuring my life against the life he had taken from me. I let him be. I let him work. I let him become whoever he was going to become. And I let myself be free. It wasn't dramatic. There was no moment of revelation, no sudden burst of clarity. It was slow. It was quiet. It was the kind of change that happens when you're not looking, when you're too busy living your life to notice that the weight you've been carrying is getting lighter. I stopped checking the hallway for him. I stopped noticing when he came in early or left late. I stopped wondering if he was happy, if he was sorry, if he ever thought about the years we had lost. He was there, in my building, in my company, in the world I had built. And I didn't care. Not because I was angry. Not because I was cold. But because he didn't matter anymore. He didn't matter the way he had mattered. He was just someone who worked for me. Someone who did his job. Someone who was part of the landscape of my life, but not the center of it. I thought about the woman I had been. The woman who sat at the kitchen table and watched her husband walk out the door. The woman who spent 15 years building someone else's life while her own life crumbled. The woman who was told she was nothing, who was treated like nothing, who almost believed it. I thought about her with tenderness. With sadness. With the kind of love you have for someone who survived something terrible. She was me. She was still me. But she wasn't all of me. She was just one part of a story that had kept going. Mark stayed with the company. He didn't leave. He didn't try to climb the ladder. He worked. He helped. He became the kind of person that people trusted, that people relied on, that people came to when they needed help. He was good at his job. Not great. Not the best. But good. Reliable. Steady. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't expect anything. He just worked. And I let him. I let him be part of the world I had built. I let him be someone who mattered, not to me, but to the people who worked with him, the people he helped, the people who didn't know who he had been or what he had done. I didn't tell anyone. Not the story of what he had done. Not the story of who he had been. I let him be whoever he wanted to be. I let him build something new. The way I had built something new. The way we all have to build something new when the thing we thought would last falls apart. The promotion came 5 years later. Mark had been with the company for 7 years. He had worked his way up from the training program to a senior position. He had earned it. He had earned it the way you earn something when you start with nothing and build it yourself. I signed the papers. I approved the promotion. I didn't think about it. I didn't agonize over it. It was a business decision. He was the best person for the job. That was all. He came to my office when he got the news. He stood in the doorway, the way he always stood, his hands at his sides, his face careful. "Thank you," he said. "I know I don't." "You deserve it," I said. "You earned it. That's why you got it." He nodded. He didn't say anything else. He turned to leave. He stopped at the door. "Eleanor," he said. "I want you to know something. I've been seeing someone. For a year now. Her name is Sarah. She's a teacher. She's kind. She's patient. He stopped. He looked at his hands. She's good for me. She makes me want to be better. She makes me want to be the person I should have been all along." I looked at him. At the man who had been my husband. At the man who had left me for a younger woman. At the man who was standing in my office, telling me he had found someone who made him want to be better. "I'm happy for you," I said. And I meant it. I was happy for him. Not because I wanted him back. Not because I still loved him. But because I had let go of the anger. I had let go of the hurt. I had let go of the person I was when he left. And when I let go of that person, I realized I didn't need anything from him. Not an apology. Not an explanation. Not a second chance. I didn't need anything. I was free. He looked at me. His eyes were wet. His face was the face of someone who had been looking for something for a very long time and had finally found it. "Thank you," he said. "For everything. For the chance. For the job. For letting me stay. For letting me be someone else. He stopped. He couldn't finish. Go, I said. Go be happy. You deserve it. We both do. He walked out. I sat at my desk. I looked at the window. The city was bright with sun. The buildings were clean. The sky was blue. I thought about the woman I had been. The woman who sat at the kitchen table and watched her husband walk out the door. The woman who spent 15 years building someone else's life while her own life crumbled. The woman who was told she was nothing, who was treated like nothing, who almost believed it. I thought about the woman I had become. The woman who built a company from nothing. The woman who was respected, admired, feared. The woman who could give a second chance without losing herself. The woman who could be kind without being weak. The woman who could let go. I smiled. I picked up my phone. I called my assistant. Cancel my afternoon meetings, I said. I'm going home early. I drove home that evening. The city was busy. The streets were crowded. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink and purple. I drove to the house I had bought when I became CEO, the one with the garden and the porch and the windows that looked out over the hills. I parked the car. I walked inside. The house was quiet. It was always quiet. I had gotten used to it. The quiet of a life lived alone, of a woman who had learned to be enough for herself. I made tea. I sat on the porch. I watched the sunset. I thought about Mark. About the man he had been. About the man he had become. About the years we had lost, the years we had wasted, the years we had spent trying to be something we weren't. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel anything, really. Just a kind of peace. The peace that comes when you stop fighting. When you stop trying to be someone you're not. When you let go of the things you can't change and focus on the things you can. I had built a life. I had built a company. I had built something that was mine. Something that no one could take away. And Mark had built something too. Something small. Something quiet. Something that was his. And that was enough. That was more than enough. I saw Mark one more time before he left the company. He came to my office to tell me he was leaving. He had gotten a job offer. A good one. A senior position at a firm in Dallas. He was going to move. He was going to start something new. He was going to be someone else. I wanted to tell you myself, he said. Before I told anyone else. I looked at him. At the man who had been my husband. At the man who had left me for a younger woman. At the man who had spent 7 years working for me, trying to be someone else, trying to be better. You don't have to leave, I said. You have a place here. You've earned it. He shook his head. I need to go. I need to be somewhere where no one knows who I was. Where I can be who I am now. Where I can build something that's mine. I understood. I understood better than he knew. I'm proud of you, I said. I'm proud of who you've become. He looked at me. His eyes were wet. His face was the face of someone who had been waiting to hear those words for a very long time. I'm proud of you too, he said. I've always been proud of you. Even when I was too stupid to show it. Even when I was too lost to see it. I've always been proud of you. Of what you've built. Of who you are. We stood there, in my office, the man who had left me and the woman he had left. We stood there for a moment, not speaking, not touching, just being. And then he turned. He walked to the door. He stopped. Goodbye, Eleanor, he said. Goodbye, Mark. He walked out. I sat at my desk. I looked at the window. The city was bright with sun. The buildings were clean. The sky was blue. I thought about the woman I had been. The woman who sat at the kitchen table and watched her husband walk out the door. I thought about the woman I had become. The woman who watched him walk out of her office and felt nothing but peace. I smiled. I picked up my pen. I went back to work. Here's what I've learned. Forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about you. It's about letting go of something that was never yours to carry. It's about choosing to be free. It's about building a life that is yours, a life that no one can take away, a life that is enough. I spent 15 years building someone else's life. I spent 7 years building my own. And in the end, I learned that the only person who can make you whole is you. The only person who can give you what you need is you. The only person who can save you is you. Mark didn't make me. He didn't break me. He didn't save me. He was just a man. A man who made mistakes. A man who was lost. A man who found his way back, not to me, but to himself. And I was a woman who found her way back too. Not to him. To myself. I am Eleanor Vance. I am 44 years old. I am the CEO of Vance Industries. I built this company. I built this life. I built myself. And I am enough. I have always been enough. I just didn't know it. I think about the woman I was. The woman who sat at the kitchen table and watched her husband walk out the door. I want to tell her something. I want to tell her that she is going to be okay. That she is going to be more than okay. That she is going to be someone he never expected. That she is going to build something from nothing. That she is going to be free. I want to tell her that the best revenge is a life well lived. That the best revenge is not caring anymore. That the best revenge is letting go. I want to tell her that she doesn't need him. That she never needed him. That she needed herself. And that she was always there. She was always enough. I am Eleanor Vance. I am the CEO of Vance Industries. I built this company. I built this life. I built myself. And I am free. If you've ever been left by someone you thought would always be there, if you've ever had to rebuild yourself from nothing, if you've ever wondered if you would ever be whole again, I want you to know something. You will be whole. You will build something new. You will become someone that no one can touch. Not because you forget what happened, but because you choose to be free. You don't have to forgive. You don't have to forget. You don't have to be the person who gives second chances. But you do have to be the person who shows up for yourself. Who fights for yourself. Who builds a life that is yours. And when the moment comes, when you have the chance to let go of the anger, the hurt, the weight of what was done to you, I hope you take it. Not because they deserve it. Because you do. Because you deserve to be free. My name is Eleanor Vance. I built a company. I built a life. I built myself. And I am free. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to rebuild yourself from nothing, if you've ever let go of something you thought you would carry forever, leave a comment. Tell me your story. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. I have more stories to tell. And I want you to be here for them. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am enough. I have always been enough. And so are you.